Subscribe our channel. Stay till the end of the stories for more twist and turn. Comment us about what kind of stories you like to hear. My husband wants to keep seeing his dying mistress. My husband and I have been together for 12 years and have 2 young children. I support our family financially due to my husband's visual impairment, which has made it difficult for him to maintain work. I've never minded being the breadwinner or making do on less. He's been an amazing father from day one and takes care of the kids so I can work. I honestly thought we had the perfect relationship. About 8 months ago, I started to notice the telltale signs of an affair. I let it go on for much longer than I should have, because it was honestly too painful to confront. Well, I finally broke down and confronted him, and he confessed everything. Just as I'd suspected, he'd been seeing the other woman for about a year. What I didn't expect was that she's 68 years old and has advanced cancer. Her doctors have said she's living on borrowed time. I wasn't prepared for this. I asked if he'd been sexual with her and he said yes. I'm devastated. He says he still wants to be with me and our family, and that a lot of what he talks about with his other woman is me and the kids. It left me in a weird place, because when I found out he was having an affair, I was expecting that he was just being completely selfish, but he then told me that this all started because she has money and promised to put him in her will. He broke down crying and told me he's felt like such a failure because he's never been able to provide for our family the way he's wanted to, and this would be enough to pay for the kids' college. I'm confused and devastated. I honestly still love him and don't want to break up the kids' home. I am willing to go to counseling, but I can't deal with him seeing her again. He said they haven't been sexual in a long time since she was placed in palliative care. But he doesn't want to abandon her now because she has no one else in her life. Her only son died in a car accident 18 years ago, and he doesn't want her to die alone. Is this relationship worth saving? Should I put my feelings on the back burner until his mistress passes so he doesn't resent me for it? If there were no additional context to this post, no mention of disability, money, or will, I would simply have said, wanting to provide for your family is admirable and understandable. Going behind your partner's back through a sexual relationship is not. However, given the context in your post, I do question, 1. Do you know if she used the will promise to explicitly coerce him into sexual activity, by holding it over his head as a tool of manipulation such that his sexual participation hinged solely on that promise? Or 2. Or was this affair more something that developed naturally and equally from both parties without any manipulation involved? Or 3, did he intentionally offer the transactional arrangement himself without any initial suggestion from her? I suppose a fourth possibility is a combination of numbers 2 and 3, with 2 preceding 3. I don't mean any offense, I'm not entirely sure how to word my questions about this. I hope you understand what I'm trying to ask, as there are potential elements of your post that could complicate this beyond a cut-and-dry scenario of totally consensual infidelity. I understand what you're saying. Yes, she was upfront with him that she would leave him in her will in exchange for a relationship, though he claims he didn't know she meant sexual at first but he suspected. Thanks for answering. I'm not sure I have any practical suggestions for you, unfortunately, but your answer does give me pause. The background that he has a disability, has clearly struggled quite significantly with its impact emotionally and financially, met her in a disability support group, and the relationship developed transactionally at her instigation are all worrisome to an extent. I don't know what you should do, but if your post had been about an able-bodied husband engaging in an equally initiated, non-transactional sexual relationship, my answer would probably be that you deserve better and should consider ending the relationship, while here I don't really have a specific answer. And indeed, you know far better than I the full dynamics of this mistress relationship and your own relationship. You certainly don't deserve this regardless, but this sounds complicated. I doubt that helps, but I do wish you luck. This seems complex and painful, and I'm truly sorry for the mix of emotions and pain you must be experiencing. Was I, 21 male, in the wrong for telling my ex-best friend's girlfriend he cheated on her during their break? Apologies for the long post, lots of background details to better understand why I did what I did. Was I wrong for telling ex-best friend's girlfriend no he cheated on her while they were on a break? This happened earlier this year but still weighs me from time to time, so it would be nice to know if I was right or wrong. A bit of background story to explain my actions. So I lived with my best friend at the time, Rob, at his apartment, as roommates. I paid fairly higher rent than normal for just a room, but I was happy with the deal. We agreed I would rent the room for the year. However, I noticed the contract was only for 6 months. I should have taken a picture or refused to sign without a copy immediately made afterwards, in hindsight. Anyways, 5 months later I decided to move in with my now fiancé. Rob told me I couldn't have her around because of noise complaints and apartment is too small for 3 people, but he subsequently still had his girlfriend over, for weeks at a time. This really sucked, and I also came to hate living there because I literally had to tiptoe or the downstairs neighbors would complain. I couldn't even watch anything on my TV without earphones on. The high rent, the anxiety caused by our neighbors and not being able to have my partner around culminated in my decision to move out. I decided I'd stay for the full 6 months on the contract but alert my housemate I didn't intend to sign another afterwards. I moved out, which annoyed Rob, since my rent money paid his mortgage, but I told him more than a month in advance, before I had even found a new place to live in. I said I would aim to leave on the 14th of the final month, and in the morning I took all but one suitcase and most of my belongings. I was at work for most of the day and returned tired in the evening with my girlfriend to get my final suitcase, clean, tidy up and fix a few things before going, but the locks had been changed, most likely by his parents who own properties to rent out. I wasn't on speaking terms with Rob anymore since he acted so passive-aggressive over me moving out, and started attacking things like my flower pot and trying to get me to double pay rent I had already paid 2 months in advance. Changing the locks was illegal, since I had paid rent for the full calendar month. I emailed Rob and his parents, but they ignored my request to know why it had been changed, and that I still hadn't collected all of my items. They refused to comment on my deposit. There would be repairs I could not have fixed myself since the locks had been changed with 2 weeks of fully paid rent to spare. More worryingly, they denied that they had changed the locks and played dumb in all written correspondence, despite my girlfriend taking a video showing my key and my spare key clearly no longer working on the inside door. Since they own a few apartments to rent out, I decided to post a negative but very politely worded review on their business Google page, to warn others that they would be willing to illegally change the locks and deny it. They initially replied attempting to discredit me as a troubled young man from a rough background before editing that out and just flat out saying I wasn't a customer of their business. While they edited it out later, it was still a really low blow from them. They're financially well off and I've always been proud of being a working class boy from a deprived community. I've told them before of the stabbings at my school, the homelessness I grew up around and being evicted multiple times as a child, never knowing if we'd have enough food for next week. For them to reduce me to a troubled young man from a rough background, despite me having done nothing wrong. I was furious about the comment and talked to my girlfriend about it. I wanted to respond by sending Rob's girlfriend evidence he had slept with and kissed other girls and asked me to conceal it. I knew her a year before they got together and was myself who introduced them to one another, and recommended Rob take her to the cinema for their first date. I spurred him on to ask her out, and so when he slept with 2 other girls and went out on a date with a third while they were on a break, I seriously considered telling her. Ultimately I couldn't, because he was my landlord at the time. I thought it might not be wise to tell her after, during the move out, nor to respond out of pettiness, but my girlfriend said she would want to know if she was the girl. I deliberated over it for an hour before deciding to tell her. I was furious over how Rob and his parents treated me. Rob and his girlfriend were together for over a year at that point and were doing long distance for a few months, so I also thought it might be better for her to bite the bullet now rather than later. I further justified it by telling myself it was wrong for him to tell me how he'd break up with her if she was with other guys during their month-long break, while he literally slept with other women himself. The comment, changing the locks and lying about it, and stealing my deposit ultimately spurred me on to do it, but my intentions weren't entirely vindictive. I can't say for certain, but had I not been living with him, maybe I would have told her when it happened. Was I wrong for what I did? TLDR, stopped living with former best friend because of unfair rules and other issues. He and his parents changed locks early and stole deposit, so I responded by telling his girlfriend of how he cheated during their break. Edit, there were other reasons why I moved out too. I felt him being my landlord imposed a new dynamic on our friendship, one where I couldn't comfortably criticize him since he was my literal landlord. He's not a racist or a sexist, but he's said sketchy things, like this one argument where he was criticizing International Women's Day, that normally I would call out, but it was difficult to because of the landlord dynamic. Same issue for when I first wanted to tell his girlfriend about the break stuff. Nah, I don't think you were wrong. He made his bed, and he can lie in it. Every step he took in your story was screwing someone over, you or his girlfriend. Had he not cheated, this would not have happened. Had he not tried to scam you out of money, this would not have happened. Had he not changed the locks, this would not have happened. Had his family not personally attacked you, this would not have happened. So while your motives may not have been the cleanest, this all sits on his head, IMO. He sounds like a person who could do with a lesson in consequences. Agreed. They were on a break. Had to say it, don't sweat it. He'll win her back by saying he's just mad for being kicked out. I'm more interested in your conflict with your landlord and money than a shitty relationship. I'd what terms they're on now. Even if they were on a break, it was wrong for him to get me and others to spy on her social media to see if she was seeing anyone else. He said he would break up with her permanently if she did, and then turned around and slept with 2 girls himself. I was referencing Ross from Friends. Thanks for listening so far. If story have update we will post here. Like and subscribe to our channel for upcoming stories.